Hello, and welcome to History by AI, the channel where I use artificial intelligence to create stories about historical events. Today we'll be looking at the Korean War, a conflict that divided a nation and shaped the course of the Cold War. With that being said, let's get started. The Korean War started on June 25, 1950, when North Korea launched a surprise attack across the 38th parallel, the line that separated the Communist North from the Democratic South. The invasion sparked a global crisis as the United States and its allies rushed to defend South Korea, while China and the Soviet Union backed North Korea. For 3 years, the war raged on, with battles fought on land, sea, and air. It was a war of attrition, marked by fierce combat, massive casualties, and stalemate. It was also a war of ideologies pitting democracy against communism, capitalism against socialism, and freedom against tyranny. The Korean War had its roots in the aftermath of the World War II, when Korea was liberated from the Japanese colonial rule and divided into two zones of occupation by the victorious powers. The Soviet Union controlled the North, while the United States controlled the South. Both sides hoped to unify Korea under their own influence, but their efforts failed due to mutual distrust and rising tensions. In 1948, two separate governments were established: the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK in North Korea, led by Kim Sung, and the Republic of Korea, ROK, in the South, led by Syngman Rhee. Both claimed to be the legitimate government of all Korea, and both refused to recognize each other. The situation deteriorated further in 1949, when China became a communist state under Mao Zedong, and the Soviet Union tested its first atomic bomb. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union intensified, and Korea became a strategic battleground for their rivalry. The United States provided military and economic aid to South Korea, while the Soviet Union supplied weapons and advisors to North Korea. Both sides built up their armed forces along the 38th parallel, preparing for a possible confrontation. On June 25, 1950, North Korea made its move. With Stalin's approval and Mao's support, Kim Sung ordered his troops to invade South Korea, hoping to unify the country by force. He expected a quick victory as South Korea was poorly equipped and unprepared for war. He also underestimated the reaction of the United States and its allies, who saw the invasion as an act of aggression and a threat to world peace. The United States Security Council condemned North Korea's attack and called for immediate ceasefire. It also authorized a military intervention to repel the invaders and restore peace in Korea. The United States took the lead in forming a multinational coalition of 21 countries that sent troops and supplies to aid South Korea. Among them were Britain, Canada, Australia, France, Turkey, and Ethiopia. The commander of the UN forces was General Douglas MacArthur, a veteran of World War II and a hero in Asia. The first weeks of the war were disastrous for South Korea and its allies. The North Korean army advanced rapidly southward, capturing Seoul, the capital city, and pushing the defenders to a small perimeter around the port of Busan. The situation seemed hopeless for South Korea, but MacArthur had a bold plan to turn the tide of war. He launched a daring amphibious landing behind enemy lines at Incheon, near Seoul, on September 15, 1950. The operation caught the North Koreans off guard and cut off their supply lines. MacArthur's troops quickly recaptured Seoul and drove northwards towards the 38th parallel. MacArthur wanted to pursue the enemy beyond the border and liberate North Korea from communism. He had President Harry Truman's approval to do so, as long as he avoided provoking China or Russia into joining the war. However, MacArthur underestimated China's resolve to defend its ally and its border. As UN forces approached the Yalu River that separated North Korea from China in late 1950, hundreds of thousands of Chinese troops crossed into Korea and launched a massive counterattack against them. The Chinese intervention turned the tide of war again in the favor of North Korea. The UN forces were outnumbered and outmaneuvered by the Chinese army that used guerrilla tactics and human wave assaults. They were forced to retreat southwards in a bloody retreat that became known as the Big Bug Out. By January 1951, Seoul had fallen again to North Korean hands. Truman faced a dilemma whether to escalate the war by using nuclear weapons or expanding it into China or seek to a negotiated settlement with North Korea and China. He chose the latter option after dismissing MacArthur for insubordination in April 1951. He appointed General Matthew Ridgway as the new commander in Korea, who stabilized the front line arc around Seoul known as the Iron Triangle. He also appointed General Mark Clark as the new negotiator with North Korea and China, who began peace talks in Pyeongchang in July 1951. The negotiation dragged on for 2 years amid fierce fighting along the front lines that saw little change in territory but many casualties on both sides. The main issues that stalled the talks were the exchange of prisoners of war. North Korea and China wanted all their captured soldiers back, while some South Korean and UN prisoners did not want to return to communism. The demarcation line. Both sides wanted to keep as much land as possible while creating a buffer zone between them. The supervision of truce. Both sides wanted an international body that would monitor the ceasefire and prevent future hostilities. Finally, after much pressure from both sides, allies and public opinion, an armistice agreement was signed on July 27, 1953. At Pyongyang, that ended the fighting but not the war. The agreement established a demilitarized zone, DMZ, along the 38th parallel that separated the North and South Korea by 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles on each side. A prisoner exchange program that allowed prisoners to choose their own fate. A military armistice commission that would supervise the truth and investigate any violation. A political conference that would convene within 3 months to discuss the peaceful settlement of the Korean question. However, the political conference never took place and no peace treaty was ever signed between North and South Korea. The two countries remained technically at war, and their relationship remained hostile and tense for decades. The Korean War was one of the most brutal and costly wars of the 20th century. It claimed the lives of about 5 million people, including more than 2 million civilians, more than 36,000 Americans, more than 500,000 Chinese, and more than 1 million Koreans from both sides. The destruction of the Korean infrastructure, economy, and culture, the division of a nation and people that had been united for centuries. The Korean War also had significant impacts on the Cold War. It showed that communism could be contained but not rolled back by force, and that nuclear weapons could deter but not win wars. It also increased mistrust and rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, and between China and both superpowers. The United Nations. It demonstrated that it could play an active role in maintaining international peace and security, but also revealed its limitation and division among its members. It also established precedents for future peacekeeping operations. The United States, it strengthened its military presence and alliance in Asia, especially with Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. It also boosted its defense spending and preparedness for future conflicts. It also sparked debates over its foreign policy goals and methods, especially regarding interventionism versus isolationism and containment versus rollback. China. It emerged as a major military power in Asia, and it asserted its influence over North Korea and other communist states. It also developed its own nuclear weapons program as a deterrent against US threats. It also experienced internal conflicts over its economy and policies and political reforms, especially during the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. This concludes our story about the Korean War. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you did, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And if you have any suggestions for future topics, please let us know. Thank you for watching History by AI, where we use artificial intelligence to create stories about historical events. See you next time.